we assume what?
That you're innocent.
Innocent until proven guilty, okay? Innocent until proven guilty. So what's the null hypothesis?
Innocent.
Yeah, defendant is innocent. And what's the alternative? Defendant is guilty. Okay, what does it mean to reject the null hypothesis in terms of decisions that a judge or jury can make?
You find the defendant guilty.
Yeah, you find you reject the idea that this person is innocent, and you convict. You convict the defendant. And not rejecting the null would be what? Not convicting, or we call that acquit. Acquit the defendant. Or, yeah, not guilty. A not guilty verdict is not rejecting the null. Okay? And notice, we use the same language here in the court of law as we do in statistics, okay? Because we never say we accept the null hypothesis, right? We never say that. We always say we do not reject. We do not reject, okay? And juries, they never say we, the jury, find the defendant innocent. They say we find the defendant not guilty, okay? And does a not guilty verdict mean the defendant is innocent?
No.
No, it just means there was not enough evidence to bring about a conviction, okay? Maybe the defendant is innocent, maybe the defendant actually isn't. But whatever the case, there wasn't enough evidence to bring about a conviction. So they say we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. Yes?
Mr. Chair, the book says, why do we dwell on the negative, or something like that?
Why do we dwell on the negative?
No, because I guess the feeling is that it's a negative connotation. When I know the essence I'm getting from what you're teaching it is that it's just sort of without, amoral, so without any kind of value judgment.
Yeah, we're just basically saying, is this enough evidence to convince me that the alternative is true? And if not, we're just going to assume the null, okay? And that's how it goes. All right, so in this case, a type 1 error is rejecting the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true. What does that mean in this case?
Finding him guilty when he's
Innocent, yeah.
not
So
guilty.
when the defendant is actually innocent, but he is sentenced, okay? But the defendant, is sentenced, okay, or sent to jail, or if this was a capital punishment case, okay, that would be a type 1 error. And what's a type 2 error?
You release the guilty.
Yeah, you're letting a guilty person go free, okay? Okay. Now, of course, we never want to make any kind of errors, okay? And, we will always want to give people justice and things like that. But, errors are bound to happen, okay? Because we don't have all the information ever. And so whenever we make a conclusion, there is a risk of making an error. But the way we have our justice system set up, which type of error is worse?
Oh, type 1.
Type 1 error, right? We would say, sending an innocent person to jail or sentencing them to death is a much worse mistake than letting a guilty person go free. Huh?
That's pretty effective.
They're subjective or objective, or
Yeah.
okay. So I mean, at least that's how our justice system is set up. Other people might disagree and say, let's make sure we get everybody And, yeah, if we suspect you are up to something, we're gonna round you up and put you in some place in Cuba where U.S. rights don't pertain to you or something. You know, things like that happen. So, but I think in general we would say type 1 is worse. Yes.
Do these typologies fit the like false positive, false negative?
Yeah. So this would be false positive generally would be a type 1 error, and a false negative is a type 2 error. Okay, and so you know, this is a little bit more abstract, but you got to be aware. You know, we go through all of this hypothesis testing stuff, and we come to the conclusion: I'm going to reject the null hypothesis, or I'm going to not reject my null. Okay, but you always have to be aware that you could go through this process, but your decision could be wrong. Okay, not because you did anything wrong in your math, but just because of the random nature of sampling, your sample could look different from the actual population, but you're assuming it looks like the population, and so your conclusion is wrong, right? So, you know, anytime before the election they have all these polls, and they survey people and they say, who are you going to vote for? Okay. Now, when you take a random sample, it's possible that you know, before last year's election, some polls they took random samples, and the samples showed that Romney was in the lead, and they went off of that and they did the statistics, and the statistics still said, you know, Romney is going to win. Okay, and so they believed that Romney was going to win. But the problem was, just because of the random nature of sampling, this sample, for whatever reason, did not represent the entire United States. Okay, and because of that, you know, that polling organization was led to make the wrong conclusion that Romney was going to win versus Obama, and so, you know, there's all these other statisticians doing polling work and things like that, but those kinds of things happen, and it's not your fault. It's just the random nature of sampling, and sometimes that happens. Okay, so those are type 1 and type 2 errors, and you have to just watch out and be aware of that. Okay, so I'll try to draft up kind of like a summary sheet here. I guess we still have more time. Yeah. Yes.
So the type 1 error and type 2 error, is that potentially based on the hypothesis?
Yes. Yeah. So type 1 error is always rejecting the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true, and a type 2 error is always not rejecting the null when the null is actually false.
Okay, but like on the first one, you said that the fire with no alarm was more severe, and then on the second one, it's
Yeah. So which error is worse depends on the situation.
Okay.
Depends on the situation, right? Is it worse to believe that there is no difference between the proportions of people who prefer Xbox versus PlayStation versus making the other type of mistake? Maybe the errors there are inconsequential, okay? But other times, you know, a legitimate question could be, what's worse? Believing a drug that actually could save your life doesn't, that you incorrectly believe that it does nothing? Or is it worse to believe that a drug that does nothing could actually save your life? Okay? And people debate what that is, right? So that would be, you know, one is a type 1 error. Type 1 error would be rejecting the null. So you believe that there is a difference in the between placebo and treatment when there is no difference. Okay, that's a type 1 error. And a type 2 error is you don't reject it when the null is actually false. So there really is a difference between the placebo and treatment, but you believe that there is no difference. Okay, is one error worse than another? So the drug companies would probably say a type. Well, I don't know. I don't know what they would say. They would say, "Oh, we're missing out on this potential to market this drug that's amazing, right?" And then I don't know. Well, both errors are probably bad, and so you probably want to just gather more data to make sure you're not going to make a mistake. Okay. Questions, anything? You guys just wanna get out of here. Okay.
Is that all the time?
Yeah, so I'll put this in the, kind of the big picture stuff, and then there'll be a few multiple choice questions on big picture statistics concepts, yes?
You mentioned a few weeks ago that you're not gonna focus too heavily on the early chapters. Is it still?
Right, so I'm gonna look at test 2, the test 2 that Dr. Gamsari wrote, and pick a few questions from there, type of thing, and then mostly chapter 79, because I know that I taught you stuff from chapter 79, and then I know at least the stuff on test 2 was fair game. Stuff from before that, I have a general idea of what he should have covered, but maybe not, so yeah, okay.
Will you be able to send us, like she mentioned, videos for that second test?
I don't know if I've got videos per se, but yeah, I mean, I'll send you links to the relevant homeworks where I've done solutions for those, yeah.
So the whole test is multiple choice? Or?
The whole test is gonna be multiple choice, okay? And that's just so the grading goes quickly, I can get you your final grades. Yes.
Oh, speaking of final grades, like when will they be posted? Like how?
Give me within 1 week of the when you take the final exam, give me 1 week. They'll be up. All right, we'll end there, and we'll see you guys next week.